Brianna Aldridge, Matt Bove back at One Bills Drive. We got to hear from Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, of course, from the first time since Stephon Diggs was traded, and hearing from Josh, a big deal. And the one thing that really kind of stuck to my mind this whole conversation was, of course, everyone had a million questions with Diggs, as is expected, but I was a little bit kind of intrigued by Beane's answers to the wide receiver. It really doesn't sound like he's committed to getting a wide receiver in when they get their pick, and he doesn't really committed. He gave us the spiel of going up, back, using the pick 28, but that really doesn't seem like he's all in.
I don't believe anything at this point in the season. I don't believe anything right now, a week before the draft. I think that he is saying, I'm not saying that he's lying. I'm certainly not indicating that, but I think he's telling us what he wants other people to think, that he doesn't need a number one wide receiver, that they don't need to make a huge trade. He's looking at this depth chart. He's like, yeah, we like Khalil Shakir. We like Curtis Samuel. We like Matt Collins, but he knows that they need a wide receiver. I don't think that he's ever going to put himself in a position where, like, he has to trade up, but I think he very much knows that wide receiver is probably where they're going to go. It's just, when they do it, not if they do it.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't trust him too much because Dalton Kincaid, I think, was a surprise last year when they picked him. But this offense, no doubt, obviously it's going to look a lot different. And I think the uncertainty of everyone who is the number one and him kind of saying maybe we don't have one is a little risky, but other teams have been able to kind of rely on that tight end. I just don't know if Dalton Kincaid, as good as the rookie year he had, is going to be able to take on that role. And like you said, that's a little uneasy to kind of think about.
Yeah, they need somebody else for sure. They need another weapon. Right? When they drafted Dalton Kincaid, everybody rolled their eyes because they're like, oh, he's an offensive weapon. He's not a wide receiver. He's a tight end. Whatever. They've got Dalton Kincaid. They've got James Cook. Those are two really good pieces who I think are trending in a terrific direction with what the Bills are trying to do. They've also got Josh Allen. So when you've got a franchise quarterback like Josh Allen and you've got two really nice weapons, I think you've got a strong foundation. There is no doubt that they need to add at least another wide receiver. Their room will look a lot different if they've got another wide receiver not on their team, probably two. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Josh Allen, Curtis Samuel, like those are pieces. They've got most of the pieces, but they need to find the guys to kind of take them over to the top.
Yeah, right now, when you're mentioning all those names, Curtis Samuel is the one who is going to have the star power. I don't think anyone's willing to go all in, and he might surprise us. I mean, there's been a lot of people, like even Ty Johnson, I think, was a big surprise in the running back room. So maybe that's something that happens with what they're trying to add. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does what he does and goes for something on the defensive side as well, especially when we're talking about the defensive tackle up.
Yeah, if he does, I think there's going to be people who just grab their pitchforks and they start marching down to One Bills Drive here. It would not be the worst thing. Like, you look at what they have on the defensive side of the ball, especially the defensive line, right? Yeah. Their defensive edge, their edge rushers right now are Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, who we have no idea what to expect from him, and A.J. Epinesa, who has been a good rotational piece. With the rotation-heavy focus that they have had over the years, they need another edge rusher. But I think it would be wiser to use the money that they have cleared up after the Tre'Davious White cut on June 1st to go try and find like a Leonard Floyd like you did last year with a veteran than to use a premium asset on an edge rusher when you have such a need on offense. But I wouldn't rule it out. Like, they could kind of do anything. Which is making this draft that much more interesting. I think it'll be a receiver, but I thought it would be one last year, and they drafted a tight end, so who knows?
Yeah, I remember all the memes coming like, oh, look, another receiver, gone, another one, gone.
Yeah, so, it was like back to back to back to back. It was like there was just this run right before the Bills got on the clock.
Right, and I think the one thing that Josh Allen said today was, hey, this is just an opportunity for the people that we have, and they want that opportunity. And I know, like, we were kind of joking around, like, talking about Khalil, he's not going to be that guy. Dalton Kincaid is going to be a big piece, but he's not going to be the number one. I think that is something to kind of consider. Like, these are people in the room who have proven themselves and want a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reps to give.
No, for sure. And I think there's a lot of potential there. Like, I really like what Khalil Shakir did at the end of last season. He was maybe their most reliable target in the playoff games that they played. He made big plays. So I like what he could bring to the table. I like the potential that Dalton Kincaid has. I like Ty Johnson in a more secondary role, maybe getting a few more touches a game than he did last year. I like the pieces that they have. They just need to find somebody to scare opposing defenses, because that'll also make those other guys better. You go out and you get a new wide receiver to not replace Stephon Diggs, but but to be your main guy, that makes life for Khalil Shakir, for Dalton Kincaid, for James Cook easier because you can't just then focus on those guys.
So if we're looking at the draft, we know if you ask 90% of Bills Mafia, they want a wide receiver, right? If they can, or he thinks there's a better option, what do you think justifies? What position would you say, okay, this makes sense? The receiver they wanted or whatever didn't work out. What position would be like, okay, this makes sense?
An edge rusher, I would say. Like, if they don't draft a receiver, I would think an edge rusher is the thing that makes the most sense. There's a couple guys that seem like will be available late in the first round that have some serious talent. You could also argue defensive tackle. I don't think defensive back is as big of a need as maybe some of the national media believes. You know, you look at the mock drafts and you see, oh, cornerback, that's a need for the Bills. It's not a need, if that makes any sense, but I like Russell Douglas. I really like Christian Benford, and who knows what you've got with Kyer Elam with a new defensive back coach. I think that he is kind of going to take another step this year. So I would say probably somewhere on the defensive line. But if they get to the point where they're on the clock and there's not a receiver that they love, I would rather them move back and add another day 2 asset than draft even a defensive lineman.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, the word is interesting. It's going to be interesting, right? I think Brandon Beane has a lot on his plate. I think there's a lot more to address this season when we looked at last season. And that's just my personal opinion from what I see. But every year is different, and we're just a week away, so we don't have to sit around and wait and guess too much longer.
Yeah. Can I say one other thing about Josh Allen today?
Go ahead.
Josh Allen looked like a man who was a little bit relieved today. That was just my read on the situation. You know, the two of us were here with our colleague Dom Tibbetts. Basically have been at every Josh Allen press conference for the last 7 years. You hear him multiple times a week. Just a little bit of a different energy about him today. I feel like that part of that is the offseason, right? Like, he's not getting ready to play a game. He's not coming off of a game. He is much more relaxed. He was probably golfing last week. He'll probably be doing the same thing next week. He's back in town for workouts. But just like a little different vibe from him today, a more relaxed, confident vibe was kind of the read that I got. And I think that's what you need to see from the guy at the top because it spills down.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think a lot of that, you know, if you and I take a vacation and for 2 weeks in the sun, it's going to bring a little different perspective. You know, he's a veteran. It's just a lot of things going on, and we don't know. No one really knows what happens or why the reasoning behind the Diggs thing or whatever. Idea. But like you said, he looks like in good spirits, and that's what you want when he's going to really need to be already an extra dose of leadership this year.
He looks more California. Like, you're California, you're chill, like he's from California. He looked more like California, and I'm very high strung Northeast, go. He was a little bit more chill today, which chill. I think is cool.
He just golfed with Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
So I mean, hey, he's literally living his best life. We love to see that for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
It's all good spirits. But so 1 week away from the draft, and we'll be back here soon, right?
Yeah, and the draft is on Channel 7. So if you're in Western New York, the draft is on Channel 7. Pre-draft covered at 7:30. We'll talk to Brandon Beane right before the Bills are on the clock. And then obviously the draft starts at 8 o'clock.
And that is that.
Yep.
For Matt Vovey, for Brianna Aldridge, here at One Bills Drive.